okay? Because I think a lot of you can relate to the idea that either when you're beginning to write or when you're trying to revise and improve your writing and ideas, COM 219, writing and ideas, you can often just be staring at the blank screen. And can you relate to that? You don't know what to do to develop those ideas further. So what I want to try to do is have us come up with some ideas that you can run across every argumentative paragraph or argumentative idea that you have to see, did I do these things? And if you didn't, then that gives you something to do to further develop the idea or the paragraph. And they're basic, straightforward things, but once you start to see how they work in context, I think you will be pleased with how applicable this is and to lots of different situations. So, what are some ways to support your argument? Samantha? Sources? Yeah, sources. Okay, so the big sell here, try to think about using primary sources when you can, generating them. They're really hard to find. They're not hard to find, they're hard to make useful when they come in the form of these kinds of sources. And they're often really challenging to find. Someone who's published a study without interpreting the data for you, for example, would be considered a primary source, but that's not usually the case. Okay, so good, sources. What are other ways to support your argument? Sources is one, yeah, okay, what else? Experiences. Is that a valid way to support an argument?
Depends on the paper and the situation.
That's a good answer. How many of you feel comfortable and confident with the instruction you've had from your teacher so far about whether or not you can use I in your essay? The I think, I feel, the non-assertive kind of wimpy things that don't lead to an argument, you want to avoid that. But if you're talking about your experiences, it is valid. And when you describe them in an appropriately detached and professional way, it can be very convincing, persuasive arguments. Absolutely. And if your teacher here tells you that you can't use your experiences as evidence or support, they can come and talk to me. I'm not sure. Okay. So ways to illustrate your ideas. Now say the thing you said before.
Counter-argument.
Yeah, right? So I'm going to put it in conjunction with two things. Examples, which can be your observation, experience, whatever, and counter-examples or counter-arguments. I think you guys are more comfortable with the counter-arguments. So one thing you absolutely want to do every time you're writing an argument is to think about the however and the even though. Okay? So what do you have to do with a counter-argument?
Refute it.
Yeah, to what extent do you have to refute it? Do you have to knock it down, like smack it down like it's an ugly, ugly
Pummel it.
thing, just beat it to death? So, you're going to alienate your audience, all those good things. You want to think about the counter-argument as coming from the place of whoever said it. How would they want it to be characterized? Not how you would want to characterize it, how would they want it to be characterized? And that can help you to be much more explanatory. What I see as a huge, and this is one to put in the bank, right? One thing that I see as a huge problem with students developing counter-argument is that you want to write one sentence. Some people think civility is dead. That is not an appropriate counter-argument. Why not?
It's not very well explained.
Yeah, who are the people? Why do they think civility is dead? Why should we care? You want to take the same kind of effort that you put into your own point to think about that counter-argument. And then, do you have to refute it like kill it dead? Not necessarily. You can say, the people who think that, they have a point if you think about it this way. And then you go, however, my way of thinking about it is way better and smarter, except you say it in not such an egocentric way. Another way to illustrate ideas is through anecdotes. Those can be hypothetical or real. You want to start thinking about how can you tell a story that helps people to understand your point. another way to beef up your arguments is to think about the logical appeals. How many of you have encountered ethos, pathos, logos? Again, helps us to think about logic, emotional appeals, and logos is like credibility, right? And so, again, a way to just think through your argument and see is, did I miss one of these? Is there something that I can add to this that would add a dimension of emotional appeal? Is my logic enough? Sometimes I think students think that example is sufficient to support their claim, and you just stop, like, boop, done, mic drop. Single example, deuces. No, try to think about examples that are more robust, that are different, but are making the same point, okay? And sometimes using ethos, pathos, and logos can do that. If we're thinking through that and we start looking, what we've done is essentially kind of enact the things we were talking about. Where could we put an anecdote to develop our claim? What can we do with a counter argument? How is that going to make, I mean, that's a plan for probably 3 paragraphs that would be robust and that you could be comfortable with. So the idea is do your thinking, think about the audience, and then run those other ideas across what you have and see how you can beef it up and think about it from a different perspective. So if you're thinking about it from the perspective of a student, for example, which is where we started, then think about it from the perspective of the teacher. Think about it from the perspective of the university and see if you can address all the different stakeholders in your argument. That can only strengthen it. Okay? We are done.